Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Episode. Today we're going to continue the series, the Unported Playlist, where I take a look at my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we're playing Monster Maulers by Konami, released in 1993. If you've ever played Red Earth by Capcom on the CPS III system, you're going to understand exactly what Monster Maulers is. It's a 2D versus fighting game where you actually only have 3 characters to play as, and you need to beat up ridiculously large monsters. But interestingly enough, this game is also, for brief moments, a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up, so it actually straddles the line between two different genres. And when I say I love this game, I absolutely mean it, and all controversial comments aside, I think this is better than Red Earth from Capcom. Go ahead and leave those comments down below. I'm sure they're going to be coming in soon. But right off the top, this game is just classic early to mid-90s Konami. The sprite work, the backgrounds, the very poppy colors, the incredible soundtrack. This was Konami at its absolute best, and this game shows it. The first enemy right out of the gate that I selected at least is Brainy here. It is a gigantic brain with a tail and arms made of eyeballs that's wearing some sort of shield on its head to protect part of its brain. Although for the most part the brain is exposed in the background, so I don't know if that's actually doing anything whatsoever. Has big Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle vibes, and I absolutely love that, and considering Konami made that game as well, it's no surprise there. And some of the enemies in this game are inspired at least in part by the Gradius series. But that brain was defeated, it exploded into a red mist, and the eyeball popped out. But like I said just before, this game is also a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up, and it's about the third of a game where you're going to be doing that. And I think it's actually a really smart design decision to mix up the types of gameplay, because after you've beaten up a couple too many gigantic boss monsters, you get to do some side-scrolling action, and you know in the 90s, Konami was one of the kings of making that genre game for both arcades and the home market. So getting a little bonus beat-em-up in a fighting game from Konami is amazing, because Konami never really made great 2D fighting games in general. Monster Maulers is the big exception. Somehow they made an amazing fighting game while also making a beat-em-up at the same time, and it just 100% works. And I find it ironically funny that the, in my opinion, best 2D fighting game Konami ever made is actually half of a beat-em up as well, their best genre by far. Now, the game's not going to win any awards in the graphics department compared to something like Red Earth, but the Capcom CPS III was much more advanced hardware for its time, so we really can't judge those together, but I still do think that this game rivals and exceeds Red Earth, at least in the fun factor and over-the-top nature of it. I just love this subgenre of the fighting game where you just get these 3 characters and you have to beat the ever-loving hell out of a bunch of bosses. And interestingly, there are some sound effects in this game that would go on to be featured in later Konami games that were way more popular and well known than Monster Maulers. Go ahead and listen for 3 seconds and comment and tell me where it's from. If you know where that sound effect is from, you will absolutely immediately hear it. If you don't, it's going to be really hard. I just will tell you that it came after this game came out. But as we move on to the next stage, I do love that some of the stages have these mini bosses. Spiderwort here looks half like a flower, half like a dangling something else. I'm sure you can fill in the blanks, and you need to kick the ever-loving hell out of it before you can actually go on to the main stage boss. But I love all the screen transitions as well. The ground breaks open here and falls down, and a gigantic Moai head appears in the background. There is so much charm in this game. The backgrounds, the bosses, the characters, the colors, the music. You can tell the developers and artists absolutely loved making this one, and the animations are great as well. Now you will see in a moment, I'm going to go ahead and grapple the Moai head here, and all of the animations work depending on the size of the character. That gigantic Moai head, it does look like I just picked him up, and it 100% works in context of the game. And I will say you need to learn the grappling system of Monster Maulers if you want to see the credits without just feeding it virtual quarters, because the grapples take so much life off the boss's health bar. 2 or 3 good grapples and you're almost out of the round with a W. If you don't learn the grapple system, you're going to be losing time after time. But that grapple system really does give an extra layer to the game. But from the combat to the graphics to the overall moveset and design, this game is just one of my favorite Konami games of the era, and it's got a classic Konami soundtrack as well. They made some of my favorite arcade music in the 90s, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I'll come back, show you more gameplay, more beat 'em up, and more fun. Enjoy! I just love that music. It 100% sells the intensity of you kicking a dragon in the face. And there is a particular sound effect in that boss fight as well that's from a famous movie. Comment down below and tell me if you know where it is. I'm sure 9 out of 10 of you are going to get it. But as we basically put the red dragon in between our thighs and slam it into the ground a la Chun-Li, I just can't get over how fun this game truly is. I love the map screen. I love all of these little intercut titles here between the matches. Everything about this game just 100% does it for me. Although I will say I've played this game multiple times, and Fungus, for being one of the smaller bosses, is definitely the hardest boss in the game. This is going to be a block for a lot of people, but the good thing is, or the bad thing is, depending on how you look at it, you can just feed this credits and get past any boss. If you lose both of your lives, all you need to do is hit continue and you're left right where that life bar is. So if you do get stuck, you just credit feed it and you can bypass it, which makes it a lot easier if you're not actually giving it real quarters. But if you just want to experience the game and you get stuck on Fungus, it is something you can do. And I will say, of the 3 characters, each one has its own unique moveset, and each one is going to be better or worse depending on the boss you're fighting. There is a strategy on your character selection here, and it is unfortunate that you can't change characters in between rounds. That would have been a great quality of life feature if when you beat one boss you could have switched out your character before you went into the next round. It would have really given you something extra. But since we fought a few too many bosses here, we're going to move on to a beat 'em up section. And while this is definitely condensed and maybe only 5 minutes of the entire game, I just love it. We get up on this gigantic plane, you get this little sky in the background, that bright blue, and as soon as you're done kicking a couple robots in the keister, you get to go into another boss fight. It just breaks things up. And it is really interesting. The only thing I wish this game would have done is been boss fight, beat 'em up, boss fight, beat 'em up versus 5 boss fights in a row, then some beat 'em up, then a few more boss fights. I think contextually the game would have been a little bit better in the flow department if we were able to actually have these intercut in between each boss. But honestly, it's a very small complaint about a game that I absolutely love. But if you've never played this game before, when you get into the later stages and go up against the last 2 boss fights, it is going to get very, very difficult. It can almost get downright cheap if you don't understand the patterns, because this boss right here, Ducker, will stun lock you in the corner. If you can't jump over that attack, you're going to get staggered and you're going to take a few losses. And of course, it wouldn't be a beat 'em up if there's not an elevator, but in this instance, we don't actually fight on the elevator, so I'm not sure if this qualifies as a beat 'em up elevator sequence. It just happens to be in the game. But again, one boss down towards the end, we get to go to another beat 'em up section, and I just love how big the sprites are here. All the different animations in the background, these skulls putting out smoke, all of these doors opening up. It just looks like an amazing experience, and I'm sure the artists love making it. And you do need to worry about verticality in this game as well. You're going to be jumping up into the ceiling to beat a couple of these spider bots here before you can move on to the final boss. It is just a breath of fresh air to do something slightly different before you go into another boss fight, and from a design perspective, it is a really intelligent way to break up the action and give you something a little bit different to do, like fighting these motorcycles, grabbing their tire and body slamming them to the ground. It is just a blast. And of course, there is a robo-ape at the end, because why wouldn't you want to fight a robotic ape? And this sequence has one of the best songs I think Konami's ever done, only rivaling some of the stuff in Violent Storm. And I love that the Konami composers and music makers are always willing to put lyrics in their music as well. So go ahead and listen for just like 25 seconds this time, but trust me, this one I absolutely love, and I think you will too. Enjoy. When it comes to best arcade music in the 90s, I feel like Konami and Taito kept changing back and forth who was in the lead. This game has absolutely amazing music, and it's second only to Violent Storm in my opinion as far as the best music Konami ever made for one individual game. But we have defeated Robo-Ape, and you would think you would be done here, but we're actually not. The final sequence, the final third in this game, is probably the longest feeling, and it is some of the best action as well. As we get into this flying fortress with the engine room here in Cosmic Tank, just look at all the details in the background. For a game that was 240p, based entirely out of sprites and background layers, they got so many details here, especially that window with the parallax scrolling in the background and the clouds. This is just chock full of details, and it just sells how much fun this game truly is. But I would say, as a final boss, Cosmic Tank is actually the least hard of the 3 final bosses you're going to fight in the end stage of the game, which is not that big of a deal whatsoever. However, at this point in time, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a breather, considering that RoboApe there probably took at least like $3 to $4 worth of quarters off you if you were in the arcades. But as we defeat the game, there are two different endings, a good ending and a bad ending. And if you bring a friend and play as a two-player experience, there are special grapple moves that you can execute only when you have a second player. But Video Game Esoterica is a me, not an us, so it was just me today. But this game is just one of those absolute classics that I never really hear many people mention whatsoever, which is an absolute bummer because I absolutely love this game from the start to the finish, even the ridiculous credit sequence where you get to see all of the different boss designs throughout the game. Obviously, Capcom and Red Earth take the crown as far as notoriety is concerned when it comes to popular games in this genre, but I think Konami did it better, and technically they did it first as well. So if you've never played Monster Maulers before, definitely check it out and play it with a friend if you have one available, because it is even better as a two-player experience. But however you decide to play this game, don't make the decision not to. It takes like 25 minutes to finish from start to finish, and you're going to have an absolute blast doing it. This is just one of those special games. I'm always hunting for a PCB, but I haven't seen one for sale for a decent price. But short of that, thanks so much for watching, guys. Monster Maulers, 10 out of 10. It's got that classic Konami vibe we all know and love. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.